Good evening, everyone. Welcome to LFC Transfer Room. I'm here tonight, joined by Dan, Tom, and Paul from three continents. I think we are. We have guests for tonight, so this should be a very interesting, diverse stream. Thank you very much to everyone who is on. Make sure to like, subscribe to the channel, and also leave your comments, please. We'd love to hear your thoughts as well. It's been a pretty good weekend for the Reds. Uh, Not a pretty nervy match against Brighton, to be honest, but then a good draw for us in the Arsenal versus City game. I, it was a lot more boring than I thought it would be, to be honest. Even my a mate who's a City fan told me he kind of fell asleep watching it, so that kind of should tell you everything you need to know, basically. But the good thing is that Reds are now in the top of the table in the Premier League. So we are going to have 9 more finals to see what is going to happen. Then, how are you doing tonight, mate?
Yeah, I'm doing really well. I'm obviously a lot happier after the weekend's results. I think they went just as well as we could have wanted them. Finally beating Brighton and De Zerbi, which is a little, bit of a hoodoo off for us, which is nice. And of course, watching Arsenal versus Man City ended up as a draw. I just would have liked some more yellow cards and had Mr. Coote refereed that game as well. There probably could have been a couple of red cards as well. So yeah, really good results. And Thursday, I can't wait.
Yeah, honestly, I think what's interesting now is that you mentioning the yellow and red cards. You know what I'm hoping for? I'm actually gonna root for City and Arsenal to get past their opposition in the Champions League. So it's just I think I'm gonna be their fan now for the rest of the Champions League campaign. Maybe until the final though. But if they play each other, that's gonna be tricky. But that's another conversation. So we'll get there when we get there. Paul, how are you doing tonight, mate?
I am doing well, man. The weekend went as best as I could. I could not have hoped for better results in the Premier League. Everton lost, Liverpool win, City and Arsenal draw, Man U and Chelsea struggled. It's been a fantastic weekend. So let's hope we can say the same thing for many more weekends going forward.
Yeah, it is going to be an interesting run in now, especially with the Europa League coming back as well. So we're gonna need pretty much every one of the players that we have available, and some of them coming back as well. We'll talk to that in a second, though. Tom, how are you tonight, mate?
Yeah, good. Cheers. Yeah, got to echo Paul's thoughts. To be fair, it's just ideal weekend. What it like couldn't have gone any better for us. No injuries either, which is a bit of a change from what normality for us. So yeah, perfect day yesterday, perfect Saturday as well with Everton and United, both dropping points. So yeah, couldn't have asked for much more really.
Hopefully more of the same for United in this weekend as well. But not only they're gonna have to drop all the points pretty much because we can't really afford to slip up anymore. But we'll talk about it a bit later. Make sure to please like, subscribe if you're new here, and also leave your comments, please. We'll try and integrate them as much as we can in these conversations. Dan, were you as impressed as I was with that Mac Allister performance yesterday? I think, did he even put a foot wrong? He was instrumental, basically, and especially on that second goal, the composure that he showed. I saw a tweet, someone saying, "I got angry just imagining what Henderson would have done in that situation." So, a bit of an upgrade, wasn't there?
Yeah, I'm 33 on Wednesday, and when I grow up, I want to be Alexis Mac Allister. So I think that says things. He's just an incredible footballer, isn't he? Just on the ball, he's off the ball. He's so clever. He's like a slow player, and he plays the game in his own world. It's like he's playing on a different setting, and all before the goal, obviously, which was I'm so glad that he got the assist, but it was all the work that he was doing before he got the assist. It was the balls he was playing for Mo Salah were just incredible each and every single time. The reason Mo Salah, I think, breaks the record for the most shots in a game for himself, which is quite shocking, to be honest with you, that it's taken so long to get to that number, was probably just down in part to Mac Allister constantly playing in these really good high quality balls and just being so involved in the game. And we said on the post match, actually, we're talking about is that, we've had some really good conversations and debates maybe in our chat about what is Alexis Mac Allister, and we talk about sixes and we talk about eights, and I like to wind people up about it and say that Alexis Mac Allister is a 6. Well, he is, but he's also an 8, and he's also a 10. He's just a complete midfielder. He's capable of doing everything so well. He's capable of tackling, which is what we saw. He's capable of matching people for the runs. He's capable of, intercepting the ball. But then he's also capable of just dictating the play and going, right, we're going to play it the way I want to play it now. And the way he takes that pass from Szoboszlai, just fizzed into him, stops it dead. And then the next, move for him to do is to sit there and play this fantastic ball through to Mo Salah, who obviously has to finish it. But like you've just rightfully said, having Henderson there and not to disparage Henderson and what he's done for our club, but it would be the same for Fabinho, and it would be the same for maybe even a Curtis Jones. Those players who were in our midfield don't have what Alexis Mac Allister can do and what he has been doing since he's moved forward and playing in an 8 role per se for the start of the match. It was just fantastic, and he's so influential in a team, and you can tell, there's a common denominator between Caicedo and Enzo, who both gone on to be paid more than £100 million for Chelsea. It's Alexis Mac Allister played with the pair of them and clearly made them both much better than what they are. So I think we got the right midfielder there. I could not be happier with him. What an incredible player he is.
Yeah, talk about the we've had this comment here with saying we should maybe if we would have been more clinical, obviously the game wouldn't have been as nervy. Talk about it. I captained Mo Salah in my FPL team, and I was watching that. I was just hoping for another one. It just didn't come in the end. But yeah, you have to take those sometimes, don't you? So, Paul, your thoughts on that Mac Allister performance yesterday?
Mac Allister can play the 6 role very well, but I don't want to see him back at the 6. The guy is a complete midfielder. Because that pass, well, I don't think it's a pass. That shot from Szoboszlai to Mac Allister, it was fizzed in, as Dan said. And the way the guy just, at first touch, it's unbelievable. Now, we have had a lot of great midfielders in our history. And I don't want to be accused of recency bias, but there's just something about Alexis that just have me in awe. The way the guy can operate in small spaces is what I think sets him apart right now. We all know Trent can pick a pass just like anybody else in world football. Macca can do that too. Because even the first half, there was a couple of passes over the top to Salah that shows that he has that range too. But the way the guy operates when there is 2, 3, 4 defenders around him, the way he can use his small frame to protect the ball and make those little intricate passes under pressure, especially when we need a goal. Don't forget the last game we played against Forest. That pass that he gave to Darwin with his left foot to give us the 3 points was also another beauty. So, it's kind of hard to believe. I think we should send another check to Brighton, because for 35 million, I think that's a steal, considering what other midfielders went for in the last transfer window. But Salah, the history with Salah over the last 7-8 years, he's probably one of Liverpool's greatest players. But right now, I want to venture to say that Macca is probably our most skillful player right now in the team.
Yeah, it's probably the first World Cup winner we've had in midfield for a while. Part of me just thinks If Thiago Alcantara would have been fit, can you imagine the partnership? Sometimes it just gets me all tingly just thinking about it, but you know how it is. You can have them all, I guess. Tom, is McAllister your signing of the season for us, and how impressed were you for what's happened yesterday?
Yeah, I think he's got to be. Yeah, so impressed by him. I think he's a joy to watch. He's just one of them players that you just love watching because he's just so intelligent on the ball. He always makes the right decisions. Just the way he goes about it, it's just yeah, like I said, just so impressive and so like easy on the eye. Yeah, such an intelligent footballer, and I think he has got to be. He's arguably signed of the season in the Premier League. I think people had the doubts about him early on in the season. Obviously, it wasn't his fault because he was out of position, but he had some, not great performances. And everyone's like, just, were a few questions about him. All the talk was on Szoboszlai, because he started like a house on fire. But like since he's gone to that 8 role, he's been outstanding. I think he's definitely a world class midfielder. I think he's shown that for a while now. So yeah, for me, our sign of the season and arguably Premier League sign of the season because I think he's just been so instrumental for us over these last few months. I think he's been our best player. Everything goes through him. When we need a goal, you're thinking give the ball to Mac Allister because he's the one who can unlock a defence with his intelligence, and it's just his ability on the ball. He can pick out pass out of nowhere. So yeah, I think he's been absolutely outstanding, and yeah, probably sign of the season in the Premier League for me.
Yeah, I think a lot of that relies on who's going to actually win the league in the end. But we know how these awards go. But for us, I think it's actually an interesting topic. You've mentioned Szoboszlai as well. I've been saying that at the beginning of the season, I thought Szoboszlai was going to be our signing of the season, but then it turned into watching Endo perform out of this world at times in that the Emerald and now Macca as well. I think the business we've done is honestly, even though some of us maybe weren't as excited about Endo as we would have been on Caicedo at the time, because now we definitely think he's better. It's just it kind of sets us up for the future now because we have a lot of talent in midfield coming from the academy, and also some of these players that we've signed. Szoboszlai and Mac Allister are both 24 and 23, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, they could very well be here for the next 4 or 5 years as well. Now, this is not the next topic that I've intended, but I've seen this comment from Haler, and it kind of made me think for a little. Now, I know we have a very big Curtis Jones fan in here in Paul. I remember our conversations on the chat as well. Curtis Jones is going to be back sooner rather than later, and that leaves us with a pretty important question, as Jones was very good for us this season. Probably I'm thinking it's pretty certain that this was his best season yet for us. So now he is going to be back soon. Is he going straight back into that midfield? Now, Dan, I am going to ask you, and I'm going to put you on the spot now, your preferred midfield 3 for the rest of the season if everyone is fit.
This is where the problem comes around, doesn't it? And this is where I've had the argument of talking about where players are going to play in our team and what they'll have to offer. Is that when I said that Mac Allister is a complete player, I mean that you're going to have to be to get into this team, because Dominic Szoboszlai, for me, has to play in our team. And I don't know many people would argue with me and say that he shouldn't be in the team. Please speak up if you think that he isn't our first choice right centre midfielder. I'd be interested to hear the story. Now, the next step would be as to who is our left centre midfielder. And then a lot of people, Paul included and me included, would say, well, Curtis Jones is that position because he's easily one of our best players who played in our midfielder. And it wasn't that long ago that our preferred midfield was Alexis Mac Allister as the 6 DM with Dominic Szoboszlai and Curtis Jones. And not one person was saying that that wasn't a good midfield. Not one person was going, that's a brilliant midfield. And I'm still convinced there's a very good chance that that could be what we see. And that isn't a disparagement on Endo and saying that he should be dropped, because I think he's excellent. I think he's brilliant. But what I'm saying is if we take Endo out of the team, do we lose a lot going forward? Nowhere near as much as we would when we take Alexis Mac Allister out of the team. So if we're not playing Alexis Mac Allister, and it means we're not playing Jones, and it becomes a real difficulty in our midfield as to where they play. Does he come straight back into the team as a starting position when he's fit? I don't think so. I think they're going to have to try and build him into the team, and that's not because of his talents. I think it's more on the basis that we just need to manage his minutes, which might help. But when everyone is fully fit, it's a real difficult question because, in my opinion, unless we're coming up against an Arsenal or a Man City or trying to think of really who has a proper threat, maybe a Spurs, with Son, through the middle, I would argue that the midfield that we should be playing against teams that you think that we should be beating and dominating, I would have Alexis Mac Allister in front of Endo. I would have Curtis Jones as a left centre midfielder, and I would have Dominic Szoboszlai, of course, as our right centre midfielder because of that in that situation. But of course, it will be horses for courses. Against a big team like a Man City, you probably want that defensive cover that Endo would have over Mac Allister. So, yeah, Sheffield United, for example, it'd be very easy for me to say Mac Allister, Szoboszlai, and Jones as a midfield. And I don't think anybody would pull too much of a face on that situation.
You know what? I am grateful that I don't have to give my own opinion because I can just ask you guys, because I cannot think of, because you know what I just remember now? Trent is also going to come back. And then you can also argue that we do look a bit more solid defensively with Bradley at right back, which begs the question, do you then play Bradley at right back and do you keep Trent in midfield? Paul, I'm going to have you answering this question. Your preferred midfield three?
Well, just before Curtis went out injured, I was all over that Curtis, Macca, Szoboszlai midfield. Getting injured sometimes is unfortunate, but sometimes it helps a manager to solve a problem that he did not know that he had. And it doesn't matter who you are, if you're not Salah or Verge or Alisson, nobody is guaranteed a spot in the team. Maybe Trent. So other than that, 4. So it doesn't matter how good you were before you got injured. If the guy that replaces you has taken the game to another level, then he has to start ahead of you. The nice thing about the situation is that we have a manager who I think is the best in world football in terms of halftime adjustments. So what that means, if the game is not going as planned, depending on the situation, he has the ammunition on the bench to make the required changes, which is way different from where we were, even in our pump in 2019-2020. We had a fantastic 11 or 12, but our bench was a noticeable drop-off in quality. So that is why people like Fabinho and Gini played so many minutes, because there was no replacements for them. So that's not the case right now. So to answer your question, the midfield that started yesterday, that to me is the best midfield if everybody's fit. Gravenberch, Curtis Jones. I could even make the point that maybe Harvey Elliott should be the first person off the bench, because he has been fantastic. And even if you see the couple of times when he played for the under-21s, he has been out of this world. And I think barring City and maybe Arsenal, I think Harvey Elliott would start for the other 17 Premier League teams in their midfield. So it's a big problem. It's a good problem to have. The issue with Trent, though, this is where I differ from most people. If Trent is ready to go and there's no concerns about fitness and he can give you 100%, he's back in the team. Trent at 85%, he can stay on the bench. Trent at 100%, he has to play. Now, where would you play Trent? At the moment, I think our best option is to have Trent back at right back and then have Trent beside Endo in his usual role when we are in possession. Yes, Bradley does not deserve to go back to the bench, but we can only play 11. So unfortunately, Bradley is what? He's 21, so he's a young man. He has 10 years ahead of him. So if everybody is fit, the only changes I would make to the team that started yesterday would be Trent for Bradley, and Alisson, of course, come back whenever he's ready. The interesting question is probably Joe Gomez versus Andy Robertson on that left side. I think if you're playing a team like Sheffield Wednesday on Thursday, which, oh, that's nice. Wednesday, we played Wednesday and Thursday. No, they're not Wednesday. That's Sheffield United. My apologies.
Yeah, careful.
Wednesday.
Your fans are not going to be happy with that.
Oh, yeah. If you're playing a team like Sheffield United, you could make the argument that that's a game that you want to Robbo because he's much more of a threat going forward. But if we're playing a Man U or a Spurs, I probably would at least start the game with Joe Gomez on that left side. The reason for that is I think Joe Gomez is a better fit on the left side when Trent is starting. Because when Trent starts, then Gomez would not be required to be bombing down the left side as a true fullback. Because when we are in possession, the shape would more or less like a back three because Trent would be beside Endo as a double pivot. So in that scenario, then Joe Gomez is a better fit over there. If Bradley starts, I've noticed that we are bringing Joe Gomez in the middle as a inverted fullback, and I don't like it because I don't think that's his game. Right. But to finish my point, Trent has to start when he's ready, and Curtis Jones on the bench.
Fair enough. Tom, now you've had some time to think. So your option for that midfield three.
Yeah, I'd agree. To be fair, I think the midfield three that's starting currently has to stay as it is. I think Jones has to work his way back into that. I think Endo and Mac Allister are absolutely undroppable. They've just been both outstanding for so long now. I think, Dan does make a good point. Mac Allister can play the 6, he can play the 8, he can play the 10, but he can do a job at the 6, but he can do a world-class job in the 8, and I don't see why you would move him. I think he's just going to have that position locked down now for the rest of the season. As I said, I think Endo's been absolutely outstanding as well, so I think no matter who you're playing for me, I think them two have to start, and then Szoboszlai against Jones. I think Szoboszlai is just a better footballer for me. So I think I'd stick to how it is currently. I just don't think Jones has the same impact on games as the other three. Even Harvey Elliott, I don't think he has. Maybe controversial. I just don't think Curtis Jones has the same impact on games as them three and Elliott. I think he does a good job, but I don't think he takes a game by the scruff of the neck for me, like a Szoboszlai and Mac Allister do. So for me, I think Jones stays as a squad player for now, and that three has got to stay. And I also agree that Trent, as good as Bradley's done, I think Trent has to come in because he's a world-class footballer, and that he's shown that for multiple years. And I don't think there's much more to say on that, to be honest. Bradley got a great future ahead of him, but Trent Alexander-Arnold's not gonna sit on the bench. He's a match winner. He's shown that for years now, so he's got to come back in when he's fit.
I think the point I was trying to make, with that is there's only one player really, unless there's an injury that comes round, where there's some adaptability as to where they can really play, and that is Mac Allister, which would then allow, because Curtis Jones on his day isn't as good a player as Alexis Mac Allister is, and he's probably not as box office as Dominic Szoboszlai is. Arguably, the two of them are. I mean, Szoboszlai is much further along in his development and is probably a better player. But it's what Jones can do, and some of what he does is actually been mentioned in the comments. it's the level of calmness that he can bring as well. You know, we all were talking about earlier on this season when he was injured it wasn't injured. It's when he got sent off against Spurs. We all missed what he could do, which was slowing the game down. And that's why I think that it's not like it was back before when Paul said where we had 11, 12 players and you could basically pick the 11. As long as there wasn't an injury, you knew who was going to play. Where now we have a much bigger team, which Klopp isn't normally used to, who are all... They're not even like drop-offs. They're all different tools to use to who we're playing against. And I just think if we just picked one team, Curtis Jones isn't getting back into the starting lineup. If everyone is on their game, if that makes sense, he would probably rely on someone dropping out of form, because it also wasn't long ago when Gravenberch stepped up and everyone was like, Curtis Jones can have a job getting in this team here now, you know, and now no one's even talking about him being in the starting lineup. So we're blessed with players, but unless we have some adaptability, we're not going to see many of them, you know, playing anywhere or starting games at the very least.
I have a question for Dan. Question for you, Dan. Right now, I think that the only true number 6 in the team is Endo. We have seen Curtis Jones play the number 6, albeit it was for the under 21s last year, and he did an excellent job. If Curtis Jones wants to get playing time, do you think he has the ability to be converted? Dan disappeared. To be converted. Do you think he has the ability, or do you think it makes sense for a couple of those? Because we have a plethora of number 8s. We have too many number 8s. Do you think Curtis Jones is one of the 8s that could possibly be converted to a 6? Because right now, if Endo picks up an injury, I really don't want to see Macca back at the 6, even though we may have to do that. Which one of those number 8s you think has the tools to be converted to a 6, full-time 6, if any?
Well, none, because I don't think we're going to have full-time 6s. I don't think Mac Allister is going to be one. If we watch the game back from yesterday, Alexis Mac Allister did actually play in the 6 on numerous occasions. He was the deepest line midfielder.
Like a double pivot, you mean, with Endo?
Yeah, perhaps a double pivot, but at times Alexis Mac Allister was our deepest dropping midfielder when it came from picking the ball up from our defenders. Multiple times that happened because I was watching out for it, because I wanted to see whether or not I was deceiving myself or gaslighting myself into believing that Alexis Mac Allister still plays within matches as a 6, and he does. We noticed when the breakaway happened in the first half, where we picked up the yellow card, who is our deepest line midfielder to pick up that position? It's Alexis Mac Allister. Why is he there? Why would you have your number 8 in that situation being the furthest back midfielder? So it'll be for moments and in parts of the game where players, and this is why I think Alexis Mac Allister is our most complete midfielder, because he is more than capable of being a 6. People who downplay him and saying that, he did an all right job. Go back and watch them. Genuinely, if you think he did an all right job, go back and watch those games, because he was brilliant. He was very, very good, especially for someone who's learning the job.
That's true, but
of course, and that's my point, because it's like anything. It's like Steven Gerrard was a complete midfielder. Steven Gerrard was brilliant on the right-hand side. Steven Gerrard was brilliant as a 10. Steven Gerrard was brilliant as an 8. Steven Gerrard could probably play everywhere but in net, and even in net, he'd probably give it a go, to be totally honest. It's that you look at them and go, right, he's excellent. I believe that Alexis Mac Allister is excellent at doing 6 work, but as every football fan, what is the most important thing in games? Scoring goals and creating goals, and he is equally as good, if not better, at doing that. So he will be an 8, but I also think where the game dictates, he'll play as a 6. So to go on to your question about Curtis Jones as a 6, I don't think so. I'll be honest, and the reason I don't think that would be the case is because there was a really interesting comment, quite famous now, from Jurgen Klopp, which was, if you could, I've been able to teach you Curtis Jones to defend, and because it's not him. He actually isn't a defensive-minded player, but he's been capable of bringing that into his game. He is an 8 who I don't think could play as a 6. Dominic Szoboszlai is an 8 who does a brilliant imitation of a player who could play as a 6, but I don't think he would have the... It's the positional nous that's my thing with it. You've got to be in the right places at the right times to play that defensive midfield situation. So, no, I don't think Curtis Jones would be a 6. I think we're likely, if Jurgen Klopp was carrying on, which he's not, we can all hope and pray, that I think we will be moving to more players who are utility, who can do two things very well at the same time. And I just don't think Curtis Jones has that in him to be a 6. To be honest, I think he is a left-centre midfielder. And that's why I don't think he gets in our team unless Alexis Mac Allister plays in front of Endo on occasions. Does that make sense?
Well, I mean, I guess it's because I'm trying to see how I can get Curtis Jones in the team without having to move Macca from the 8, right? So what my thought was, if we have Jones, Szoboszlai, and Macca in the team, because that was our best midfield before he got the injury.
Yep.
But in that scenario, I had Macca at the 6 and Jones at the left center 8. Yep. Could the same 3 play, but the roles reverse? That was where I'm coming from, with Macca at the 8 and Curtis behind.
Yeah.
Because then we would have, I don't know, because with the in possession of the ball, I think we would have more threat. Now, the thing about Endo, what I like about Endo is that Endo is not a flair player, but he does the simple things well, and he keeps it simple. He protects the back 4, he wins the ball, and he gives the ball to the better players.
Yeah.
But he is not that enterprising passer of the footballer like the other players that we have. So I am not rooting for Endo to be on the bench. But at the same time, I am thinking, what would be the solution if we want to get Curtis in the team? Also, if we have a big... Because Endo is 1 yellow card away from a suspension. If you pick up another yellow card in the next 2 or 3 games, right? Then we're going to miss him for a game or 2. I think it's 2 games he would miss. So I am just thinking, what would be our contingency if we don't have Endo? Because I really do not want to see Macca back at the 6. So that was where the question originated from.
Absolutely, and I don't think anybody does want him to drop into the 6 because of what we've seen him going forward as an 8. I just feel that it might be, as if we want to play Curtis Jones, then I think it's going to be Endo who has to drop out the team. I think he is the one whose position there's already somebody on the pitch who can do his job to a very good standard, not in the same manner, but he's also capable of doing something else. Of course, it would be an interesting one to see Curtis Jones and Allister flip.
You're changing 2 positions because you're changing the 6. And you're also changing the 8 by bringing Macca back to the 6.
Well, no, you're keeping them the same, aren't you? Because Mac Allister is... Jones is an 8, isn't he? So he just stays as an 8, if you know what I mean. So he would come in as an 8. He's a left-sided. Again, he's a young player, and maybe we're all dead impressed, but maybe he's not ready to make that leap yet. Do you know what I mean? Maybe we're just... Now we have a team who actually... Jones is now being relegated back to a bench option player, and maybe he's not good enough to be our starting player. Perhaps it could be the case.
Do you know how much I love hearing these conversations after thinking what the position we were in last season? Like, what a difference can 12 months make? Wow. But yeah, moving forward, I actually wanted to respond to a comment somewhere, but I lost track now. Yeah, there it is. I've seen this comment, and do you know how much it pissed me off when I saw fans saying that we will win like 3-4-5-0 at Old Trafford in the FA Cup? When I saw that stuff online, because you cannot go in a game against your biggest rivals. Doesn't matter the form they're in. You cannot just go and say you're going to trash them, because it's never that easy. And fine, we've won 7-0, 5-0, 4-0 against them in the past few seasons, which kind of contradicts my point now. But usually when going into games like this, I can't really be that overly optimistic. So any sort of win will do it for me against United. Now, I've the next topic that I wanted us to approach was Luis Diaz and his sort of return to form. Um, I think around 2 months ago, I was on a live stream and I said that Diaz seems to be a bit out of form, and I said that's maybe understandable considering all the things he's been through this season, off the pitch as well. But he seems to be one of our best players in pretty much every match that we've played recently. And that kind of got me thinking when I saw this comment as well from Haler. If Liverpool had all their players injury free, who would be guaranteed a starting place? Now, I'm going to tie this with the Luis Diaz point that I was making. Just so I'm nice and you boys won't say that I'm not contributing anything to the conversation, I'm going to give you 3 names that I think would start: Mo Salah, Virgil van Dijk, and Alisson. That's the tough ones out of the way. So I'm gonna let you guys think about the rest. Do you have any other players that you think would be guaranteed starters now if fit? Dan, I'm going to ask you first.
I think Konate fully fit starts in front of Kwanzaa just based on experience. I don't think that's a slight against Kwanzaa. I think Kwanzaa's been absolutely excellent, but Ibrahima Konate's got the years of experience in him as a Liverpool team. He is a more developed player. So Konate, for me, is an absolute starter when fully fit, no problems at all. Trent Alexander-Arnold, absolutely. Alisson, absolutely. Left backs become a bit of a contentious issue. It used to be Robertson, but now not so much. Midfield, I think Dominic Szoboszlai has to start for me. I think on his day, absolutely our best midfield there. And again, I think Alexis Mac Allister has to start somewhere on the pitch. I think he has to start somewhere on our team, and we work it out once we're there. Mo Salah, absolutely. And then down the centre, yesterday's game wasn't Darwin Núñez's best game, most influential game, but I still think that he still is an absolute must, especially because Cody Gakpo isn't, unfortunately, is obviously not, unfortunately, in the position where he's playing very well at all. And I always feel that Diogo Jota is better off the bench. So, yeah. And Luis Diaz, I think he doesn't have enough competition really on the left wing. I think it's just his position. So I think he starts there because he's better on the left wing than Gakpo. And Jota, I think we all probably fancy him as a bench option still. I don't know if anyone disagrees with that.
Interesting point, because I think somewhere before the Chelsea final, we've had a conversation here on a live stream, and I said that my preferred front three would be Jota, Darwin, and Mo Salah. So interestingly enough, that means Diaz would be out of the team, but obviously that was taking that sort of form that he had at that moment into account. So, Paul, your thoughts on all this?
If everybody's fit, there's about 6 or 7 guaranteed starters for sure. I'm kind of similar with Dan. For the midfield, Szoboszlai and Macca are nailed on starters. Verge, Konate. Either Konate is still ahead of Kwanzaa, but the gap is closing, A guy that is made of steel, I've not heard of any injury problems since and around the team. While Konate seems to have some little issue every 2 or 3 games. But fully fit, Konate is to the team. Verge, of course, is okay. Alisson is the best player in the world. Trent has to start. Robbo, no. Mark. Endo. You know what? I'm going to say fully fit, that 3 midfield start. And front 3 is Salah, Núñez, Diaz. There's no question there. So it's the only position that is up for grabs is the left position.
All right. Well, definitely an interesting point out to think about, but that kind of goes back to what I've been saying about us having an actual squad that can compete on all fronts now. Tom, who would be your guaranteed starters now until the end of the season?
Yeah, I think for me, there's only probably two positions up for debate: the left back and striker for me. Although Kwanzaa's been brilliant, I think Kanate, if he's fit, he starts because, like Dan said, he's just got the years on him. He's got the maturity, the experience. So I think he does get in ahead of Kwanzaa, as good as Kwanzaa's been. Trent starts. I mean, where he plays is a bit up for debate, but if he's fit, he starts. And obviously, the rest of the team picks itself for me, apart from left back, as much as I love Robertson. Gomez, you've got to give him his flowers. He's been brilliant. So there's definitely a debate to be had there between them two. And for me, Diaz definitely starts on the left just because there's not much competition for him. And he has been outstanding as well. So he's got that locked down. And then for me, Jota and Darwin is the other contentious one. I think that could go either way. Jota, he's clinical. When you play Jota in the team, you just got so much confidence in him when he goes through on goal, which, can't be said to Darwin. But then Darwin obviously brings a lot more off the ball. So for me, the team picks itself apart from Robertson, Gomez, and Jota Darwin, for me, is a coin toss. Like I said, they both offer very different things, but they're both probably, overall, probably equally as good. So maybe opposition dependent, Jota versus Darwin. And yeah, like I said, for me, the rest of the team probably picks itself when they're all fully fit. That midfield has to start for me. And yeah, as I said, the back four and front line as well. I think that's pretty much locked down. So yeah, just a couple really just that are contentious.
Do you know what's interesting? You mentioning Darwin, and I remembered about the goal that was disallowed yesterday. I was sad I was like upset on multiple levels. First of all, it was Darwin who kind of took back that ball, dragged it upfield, passed it to Mo Salah, and then obviously the wonderful pass that Mo Salah makes. I can just I could have watched it over and over again, but unfortunately, that was off. Interestingly enough, though, passes like that from Mo Salah, so underrated still. How can a player be so good yet still so underrated on so many fronts? Well, we will leave that there. Now, the next topic that I wanted to discuss with you guys would be the fitness going forward. Now, I think we've discussed it after the EFA Cup game against United that maybe we should have rested a few more players on that Thursday against Sparta. We've only had 2 days in between that Sparta game and then the Man United game at Old Trafford. And now it is going to be pretty similar with us playing Sheffield on Thursday as well. And then United on Sunday. Now, the good thing about it is that United do have a game as well on Thursday. They're going to play Chelsea. So that kind of, maybe gets us a bit more on the same level of fitness. But now, that kind of begs the question, how strong of a team do we put out against Sheffield at home? This technically should be the easiest game of the season, but we're in the Prem. We don't really get that. We know how much of a fight Luton put up at Anfield a few weeks back, at least in the first half. So, Paul, I'm going to ask you, how hard do we go? What kind of a team do we put up against Sheffield, considering that we're going to play United at the weekend?
We have 9 games remaining in the Premier League, and those are nine final. I would love to win the Europa League, but the Premier League, to me, takes precedence. There is no easy game in the Premier League. It's pointless we're here worrying about what we can do to make players fit to be available for Man U game, and then sitting here Thursday evening after a draw with Sheffield United and wondering what happened. Because they don't have the quality that we have, that's for sure. But they're also fighting for their life. So we're not going to get a low block game. So I don't think we can afford to, quote unquote, rest players. If somebody is not 100% fit, then that's a different scenario. That's different because we have other players who can step in. But I think on Wednesday evening, the manager has to look on his team and pick the best 11 of available players. it's okay if you're leading 3 or 4, I think halftime, and you want to make some changes to rest players. But if everybody's fit, it's a Premier League game. A win against Sheffield is the same 3 points as a win against Man United. So we have to win. So I am not thinking about resting players. I'm just thinking of picking the best 11 of the available fit players. So if everybody's fit, strong team.
I think this is extremely interesting when taking into account the players' point of view in these situations, because now you have that Man United game on Sunday, and that's massive, obviously, for multiple reasons, because we still haven't won against them this season. You could say we haven't lost because we, extra time, but that's another story as well. So you have this game against Sheffield that basically makes it makes sense to go hard, obviously, because if you drop points now, then you're going to look back and think, what it would have been. Dan, I'm going to ask you the same question. Maybe don't play Mo Salah for 90 minutes as we did against Sparta. Outside of that, who starts on Thursday?
I don't see a reason not to start exactly the same team, to be totally honest with you. 5 days is a long time. Yeah, 5 days is a long time in football world when it comes to games between them. We've got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday as days off when it comes to playing against Sheffield United. Those 3 points, as Paul says, are just as important as 3 points against anybody. And the most important match that Liverpool will play so far will be Thursday night against Sheffield United, and we can't look at that game and say, it's all right. We'll not start Salah. We'll not start this player. We'll not start that player. Just start the team that needs to start, win the game, and then we can worry about making our changes, because until the final whistle blows and we've scored more goals than Sheffield United, it's not won. And that will be the mentality, I think, at the team. Changes wise, I think there was something that was quite interesting. I don't know if anybody else noticed it. Against Brighton, he didn't make many changes, did he, Jurgen? Which is really unusual. Normally, you can kind of set your watch by when he makes his first double change at about 60 minutes, and we bring on uncons, Harvey Elliott or Gravenberg, but he made them a bit later. And I think he made them a bit later. One, probably because of what happened against United. I think that the substitutes for the first time all year didn't quite work and they made us worse. But I also think it might have just been a case of he's looked at it and said, it's a long time between now and Thursday, so I think I can just play these lads till the end of the match, and that's what worked out for us. So play exactly the same team. I really don't see a necessity to A, change anything for the sake of changing it, or B, bringing anybody back who maybe just needs a little bit more time to get up to scratch, shall we say. Once we get the game 2-0 first half, 3-0 by the second half, then we can bring your Jaden Dans in, and we can bring in all your Bobby Clarks and stuff like that, just to allow a bit of a rest before Thursday night. Because, as you rightfully said, United have got an arguably much tougher game against Chelsea away from home, so we're in a slightly better situation than they are.
Yep. Tom, I'm going to ask you the same question then. The team that we're going to put out, do we start the same team that play against Brighton, knowing that we also play United at the weekend? I'm going to also mention this comment here from Haler. We do have, once again, we're going to have a pretty tough month of April ahead. I think we're going to play so we're going to play Atalanta, Everton away as well. And I don't have the schedule in front of me now, but I'm going to look it up. We do have 4 away games in a row, and that's going to take some planning. And that was kind of the point that I was trying to make, in the sense that we probably cannot afford to keep playing the strongest team again and again. But maybe that's the case for the Europa League. So, what do you think?
Yeah, I think for Thursday you got to go strong. I think although Sheffield are a poor team, the games are just too important now to be able to to start resting players. You've got to go out. You've got to be professional, do the business. And like the boys have said, hopefully you'll be 2-3-0 up after 45 minutes, an hour, and that's when you could take your Salahs off, maybe your Virgils, Mac Allisters, you take all them off once the game's won. Like I said, I just don't think you could take that chance at this stage of the season now. I do think the Sparta Prague thing was crazy. I think we really regret that, because obviously you had to take Salah off in the cup, which might have cost us. But yeah, for this game, you got to go full strength. I think the Europa League would hopefully be a chance to rest some players, because I think against Atalanta and Marseille or Benfica, you'd like to think we put a few past them first leg, and then second leg, that's maybe your chances to rest players. I'd hope, especially Atlanta and Anfield. If we really go for that game, we can put 3 or 4 past them, I think, no problem. And then that's where you hopefully can rest your players. But yeah, that week when we got our 4 away games, I think that's where the title's going to be won and lost, to be fair. It's Fulham, Everton and West Ham, isn't it? Space of 6 days all away. So I think if you come through them, you'd hope we'll go on and do it from there. But that's going to be a very tricky week, because West Ham, the early kick-off Saturday again as well, which is unbelievable. But yeah, I do think that's going to be the determinant week really for the title.
Yeah, I did get the schedule in front of me now. So in April, at the end of April, we're going to play Atalanta away in the second leg, and then 2 days later we're going to play Fulham away, and then 2 days later we're going to play Everton away at 8 p.m. on a Wednesday. And then 2 days later, on a Saturday, we're going to play at 12:30 against West Ham. Now, I said it on stream once more. I never once have used the word corrupt this season, because I really try not to think about stuff like that. And I truly want to believe that nothing like that is happening. But when you look at that type of a schedule, like I cannot understand it. Playing at 8 p.m. on a Wednesday and then playing the first match on a Saturday, that's mental, isn't it?
It's not. However, it's our fault, isn't it? Because we beat Southampton, the Everton game had to be rescheduled. So unfortunately, that's why it's there. So it's our own fault for kicking the Everton can down the road when we should have played them instead of playing in the FA Cup. So yeah, you can't fault them. At least we don't have to travel very far for that game, at least on an 8 o'clock game, just across the park, which is quite nice.
Yeah, hopefully it's going to be a walk in the park as well, because I'm hoping. I'm not saying it will be, but we do know that games against Everton are tough, mainly because of their tackles. Like, I cannot. You do not understand the amount of times that I sat in front of my TV and I would absolutely scream when seeing the tackles that they would put in. It all started, I guess, with that Pickford challenge on Van Dijk, whenever I think about it, it just gets me. Yeah, that's kind of my reaction as well. So yeah, it is going to be a very, very tough end of the season. Now, we are going to get some players back as well. Hopefully, by the United game, I've seen that Trent might be available for the United game.
No, he won't be yet, mate.
He won't be. Oh,
no.
So
sorry, mate. He's been quoted for being available for the Atalanta game midweek or Crystal Palace the week after. So he's out running, but he's not going to be available for the Man United game, which I'm fine with.
Yeah, to be honest, it is interesting now, isn't it? Because if you told me at the beginning of the season that we'd have to play Conor Bradley away at Old Trafford, I would have said, "Oh, that's going to be tough." But maybe not as tough as we imagined it. Now, I think with that we are going to end this evening's stream.
I have one question for you guys before we end the stream quickly.
Sure.
Because I was having a pint with my mates last night and the question was asked. And I said, I know Gareth Southgate won't do it, won't pick him, but can you name 5 English defenders now that's better than Jarl Kwanzaa?
Harry Maguire.
That's
really? What?
Okay. Yeah, that is an interesting question. I actually thought about it when I saw the England squad. You do look at Jarl Kwanzaa and you look at it and you think, like, we don't even bother with it anymore. Like, we watch him and we think, yeah, that's Jarl Kwanzaa. He's 21 doing that in his first season with Liverpool, playing like an absolute Virgil van Dijk regen. But it isn't normal, isn't it? To just stick a young player in there like that and for him to perform that way. We've played him against City at home. Like, that was the one that kind of just, yeah.
I made myself last in saying, like, imagine I'm from the future and the season hasn't started, and if I said to you, we're going to play against Man City at Anfield, right? And we're going to start with Quaveen Kelleher in net. We're going to have Conor Bradley at right back, and we're going to have Jarell Kwanzaa at right centre. You'd already be in fear and tears, wouldn't you? Let's be totally honest with you. However, when these lads have been given the opportunity and how they've picked it up and ran with it, and Jarell Kwanzaa, he's made as many starts as his years he's been alive. 21 he started, and he's out there just, as you rightfully said, doing Virgil van Dijk kind of stuff. And he was ice cold when he was asked after that Europa League game, about what happened to Matip, and said, well, I was targeting his position anyway. And I love that because he backs himself and he's backing it up on the pitch. So no, I don't think there is. The question is, it's experience, isn't it? John Stones is there. Harry Maguire will be there because, in fairness to England, he's never let them down. He hasn't. As a Premier League defender, not so much.
But I think
Joe Gomez should be there. Absolutely should be there in a respect.
That thing about never let England down, I think that's just a lazy analysis that I've been hearing ever so often. Because you have to pick the best players available today when you're picking the team. You can't pick player A or player B because he hasn't let you down. In other words, are you saying that once you're in the team, you can't get dropped unless you let England down, even if they're better players than you? I hear the same thing about Pickford. Oh, he hasn't let England down. Okay, well, he let England down the last game. This is modern football where every team needs a goalkeeper that can play out from the back. Pickford is the only goalkeeper probably right now in the Premier League that does not have that skill. But yet still, for some reason, nobody questioned him his spot as the number one because he hasn't let England down. Gareth Southgate will never pick a guy like Jarell Kwanzaa. He's not brave enough. He's not smart enough. But I don't think there are 5 better central defenders in England right now, English, than Jarell Kwanzaa. So, that was my argument.
I'll agree with you, but the Pickford situation's a funny one because who are you going to pick? Aaron Ramsdale, the lunatic, or are you going to pick Nick Pope, who's injured? We don't have good goalkeepers in the England team anyway, so Jordan
Jack
Pickford
Butland.
is there because there's no one else to pick.
Who? Butland. That's his name? Butland or something?
Oh, Jack Butland. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's go and get Ben Foster off his podcast and we can have him in there or something like that. Mate, goalkeepers in England. And also, I'm not an England fan anyway. I couldn't care less, to be totally honest with you. I'd much rather all Liverpool players just have a bit of time off, to be honest. But yeah, to say he's not let them down, it's a little bit like, I don't know, if one of our players went away to England and was terrible, would you drop them from the Liverpool team? That's my point. Like, you wouldn't, would you? You'd be like, well, no, because that doesn't mean anything for that situation. And to be totally honest with you, Jarell Kwanzaa probably should be in that England team, but he won't be based on the fact that there's so many more experienced players who have probably built up a bit more credit in the bank for international tournaments.
What's interesting is probably when you have a generational talent like Alexander-Arnold and you cannot find a way to play him, I honestly wouldn't have any expectations from a manager like that. You cannot have players like Trent in your team and just not have any sort of idea on how to play them. You're just going to play the low block that you can play, and for that, obviously, Trent isn't the best choice. But I think this is sort of the mentality that got people in England brainwashed, overthinking that maybe someone like Reece James is over Trent Alexander-Arnold. Because, I mean, sure, if you're going to play a low block, you can find some midfielders who are going to do their job and you're going to overhype them and then that's it. But the interesting point that Dan makes and that I would agree with is obviously I wouldn't want Liverpool players to start for England because then why. I would rather have them all good, ready to go for Liverpool. It's just probably the fact that you see them in that squad and you think they can do so much if they're given the chance, and that's maybe the thing that you'd want them to succeed. That's the only reason why I can think I'd want Liverpool players to play for England. But yeah, Tom, your view, because we've all kind of contributed up until now to this conversation.
Yeah, I think Kwanzaa, should definitely be in the England team. He's the second. He's the on form. Obviously, Stone hasn't been playing much lately, so on form, he's the best centre back in the country for me. The other options, obviously, Maguire. You've got Mark Gay, maybe Lewis Dunk, but there's certainly not a plethora of good English centre backs. Gerald Kwanzaa, he's playing at the very highest level. He's playing for the league leaders in the Premier League, and he's not put a foot wrong. So he's the complete package. He's good on the ball. He's physically dominant for his age. He's just got everything. So, I mean, I get the argument about Maguire's maybe got a bit of credit in the bank, but I think you just got to look who's the better player right now, and that's Gerald Kwanzaa by a million miles. But I do agree, Southgate doesn't have the bravery to, put a young player in like that. He likes to.
We're absolutely not biased here at all, by the way. Anyone who's watching this channel, we're not biased in any way. So we're very much a neutral fan base over here. So yeah, you've heard it right.
Well, I am neutral.
Yeah,
sure. Yeah. For me, I'd have to be Stones and Kwanzaa. I think, even a United fan, I don't think they'd say that Maguire should be ahead of Kwanzaa right now. So I think that tells you all you need to know. But as you said, it's Southgate, and Calvin Phillips be on that plane, even though he can't even start for West Ham. But Calvin Phillips will be on that plane. He will. So, we don't need to say any more than that, do we? Really?
I what's interesting about Kevin Phillips? Sorry, I know this is extremely not fair on him, but I saw a tweet. Someone tweeted when Calvin Phillips came on in West Ham against Newcastle at 3-1, he came on and someone tweeted, "Watch Newcastle win this," and then they actually win that. Yeah, it's just not fair on him, but yeah, it is the situation he's gotten himself in now. Ever since those Pep comments with calling him fat,
Pep's ruined him.
Yeah, but he has those medals at home with City, and I guess that's all he cares about right now. All right, well, we are then going to end this extremely unbiased stream here. Talk about random things. Sorry, I just remembered, Dan, you said something about playing Kelleher, Kwanzaa, and Bradley against City at home. If someone would have talk about random things, imagine someone telling you there's going to be someone who completely annihilates Erling Haaland at Anfield, and his name is Gerald Kwanzaa. Imagine that sentence at the beginning.
Sorry, I didn't even finish that soundbite. Oh, and we'll also start Harvey Elliott instead of Mo Salah as well against City, by the way. And we'll have a player called Endo. He's Japanese and he's 31 years of age. And I come from the future. You'd have sat there and said to me, "It's over, isn't it? We're finished. It's 2022 season, 2023 all over again. Everything's gone wrong at Liverpool and Klopp's getting sacked." But instead, he's gone out there and these lads have just the levels are incredible, aren't they, as to what they've been able to do. So it's a credit to them, to be honest. And I still can't believe Klopp's walking away from this. Can't believe he's walking away with what can be.
I think the thing that kind of showed his love for the club is that he stayed on to kind of contribute to this rebuild and leave this squad for the next manager, which is something you don't really need a lot to build up on. I think 1 or 2 moves in the summer and you basically have the almost perfect squad that you can ask for. So yeah, big words there. There have been some interesting takes at the beginning of the season, though. I remember some people saying that Joe Gomez, yeah, could do with a change of scenery. Absolutely mental to think that Joe Gomez should have left the club. That was me, by the way, at the beginning of the season. So yeah, there's going to be an interesting stream at the end of the season, definitely. Steven has been keeping receipts with every bad take we've had on the chat, and make sure you're going to tune in for that because that's going to be special. But up until then, Thank you very much to Dan, to Paul, and Tom for being here this evening, for being part of this great conversation. And thank you all for liking, for subscribing, for commenting as well. Make sure to tune in every evening, 7:30 UK time, or right after the matches on this week on Thursday as well. I think Dan, you're going to be hosting that one, right?
Sunday. I think I'm doing the Sunday post match. Yeah.
So definitely tune in for Thursday. It's going to be a lot more interesting. So see you guys on the next few streams. Have a great week. Of the Reds.